This is an interesting mixture problem because we're not adding water or something, a solution that includes water, which we often are. Instead, we're adding um, a solution that is part ethanol and part gasoline. E85 is if you drive around in the Midwest, you'll often see um, gasoline stations selling this E85 fuel, and it's part ethanol and part gasoline. Well, this problem says let's turn E85 into E75, which means that we, instead of being 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline, we want to become 75% ethanol, 25% gasoline. So it turns out you can actually write this equation as an ethanol equation or gasoline equation. So let's solve it first as ethanol. And so if we're an ethanol equation, then we're going to let X be the amount of gasoline that we add. And so we start with 20 gallons of this E85, which means the amount of ethanol we have is 0.85. We're going to add X gallons to it, but the amount of ethanol in that X gallons is actually 0. So we're adding no ethanol to our solution. And then the amount that we end up with, well, it's going to be the amount of fuel, which is the original 20 gallons plus these X gallons of gas that we're adding. And that's going to have a 75% ethanol solution. So this is going to be times 0.75. And so now when we solve this, this goes away because X times 0 is 0. And so you just do 20 times 0.85, which is 17. And then 20 times equals, and then you do your distributive property. 20 times 0.75 is 15. And then plus 0.75x. Solve the equation, so subtract 15. So you get 2 equals 0.75x. Think about 0.75 as 3/4. So to solve this, it's like multiplying by 4/3. And so that gives us adding 8/3 gallons of gas, or 2 2/3 gallons of gas is how much we're adding. And so that is a really nice, clean way to do it using ethanol. But it turns out that you could do this another way, which is using gasoline. And if we did a gasoline equation, well, we'd have started the same way, except now instead of having 85% gasoline, it's 15% gasoline. And instead of adding 0% ethanol, we're adding 100% or 1 gasoline. And then when we end with the same 20 plus x, but instead of being times 0.75 as the amount of gasoline, it's times 0.25. And so when you go through and do the math, 20 times 0.15 equals 3. So you get 3 plus x equals 5 plus 0.25x. And so you get 0.75x equals 2, which is the same thing we had here. And so when you solve that equation, clearly you're going to get your 8/3 or your 2 2/3. So you could have solved this either using an ethanol equation or a gasoline equation.